Welcome Memoir viewers, and I apologise if you can hear the fan in the background, but it is very hot in the UK. We're currently going through a heat wave, so screw you if you have an issue with it. Oh. Today I'm going to be talking about a really big life-changing event that happened to me when I was 10. It was the 21st of January 2010, and woke up in the morning thinking it's just another normal day. Only it turned out to be the worst day of my life. Jesus. On the 21st of January 2010, my mum died. I was 10 years old, and I have disassociated from the majority of my past because it was too horrible for me to remember. So as a way of protecting myself, my brain has made me forget. So the majority of my life I don't remember. But unfortunately, the day my mum died has been scarred on my brain forever. So they started off, I woke up slightly before she came in to wake me up, because I used to wake up at the crack of dawn when I was a child. And she came in and told me to get up for school, and I replied with something along the lines of, "I'm already ready," or something along those lines, something really trivial. And then she went off and woke my brother up, and then went to go get dressed herself. And when I was on my way to the kitchen to get my own breakfast, I knocked on her door, because I love to bug my mother, apparently. And I didn't get a reply. Not a, "I'll be there in 5 minutes," or "Go away, you stupid child," type thing. I didn't get any response. And I remember just feeling really concerned. But being 10, I was just like, well, ignore that, shall we? And so I went downstairs and had my breakfast. And 10 minutes passed, and 20 minutes passed, and about half an hour passed. And my older brother, let's call him Caleb, he started getting really annoyed because Mum was supposed to drive him to work. And so he went upstairs to go and get her up to find out what was taking her so long. Because my mum, if ever, took 10 minutes most. And that was if she got distracted doing something. And so, yeah, Caleb went up and knocked on her door, and then when she didn't respond to him, he opened the door to go find her. And then he called me upstairs, and he told me to go cover her up. And I was really confused until he sent me into the room. She had been in the middle of getting dressed. So she was naked. She was in the middle of getting dressed, and she had had a heart attack. And obviously we didn't know this at the time, we just knew she was unconscious, lying on her bed. But my brother told me to go cover her up, and I remember going into her bedroom, seeing her in that state, being paralysed. I couldn't move. I don't think I was breathing. I was just stood there staring at her body, just thinking, she can't be dead. This doesn't happen in real life. This happens on Casualty. And I don't know how long I stood there not moving. But Caleb, he called me and said, is she covered up yet? And him talking to me managed to snap me out of it, and so I managed to move forward, and I covered her up with her clothes because my brain wasn't functional enough to find anything more suitable to cover her up with. It was just her clothes are next to her on the bed, and cover up with those. And yeah, and then I backed out of the room because I couldn't take my eyes off her, because it was so surreal. It wasn't something that happened in real life. It didn't happen to children. It didn't happen to me, but it did, clearly. And I left the room, and yeah, he sent me to go wake up my other older brother Jeffrey to assist him with CPR or call the ambulance or whatever the hell he wanted him for. And I remember going into my brother's room and shouting at him, like, you need to get up. And he obviously was like, what are you waking me up for? And it was like, Mum, something's wrong with Mum. And so he got out of bed pretty quickly after that. And I remember being standing outside the room staring at my brothers trying to resuscitate my mother whilst talking to the ambulance, or 999 people, whoever they are, and just sort of staring there numb, because, like, how are you supposed to react in that situation? I didn't know how to do anything, because I was pretty useless. I was 10 years old. I wasn't going to be able to help much with CPR or moving her or anything like that. And so Caleb, or Jeffrey, I don't remember which one at this point, they sent me downstairs because they didn't want me watching or whatever. And I remember going downstairs and into the living room, and then getting really annoyed with the fact that my third brother, Judas, he was just casually chilling on the sofa watching Deadly 60. And yes, I remember exactly what show program he was watching. He was watching Deadly 60, and I know for a fact that it was Deadly 60 because I remember the logo came up because it like switched animals. And I got really annoyed because he didn't seem to care. Our mother was unconscious in her bedroom, and he didn't care. And so I remember sitting in the living room and tried to distract myself the way he seemed to be distracted, but I couldn't. And then when the ambulance arrived and the paramedics came into the house and went upstairs to go and treat my mother, I couldn't help but notice everything they were doing. And then I remember there was a big kerfuffle because not only did we have really dodgy shaped stairs to get a stretcher down with a person on, but also my mum was an epic hoarder, so she had stuff going up all of the stairs, and so it became a game of trying to figure out how to manoeuvre her out of the house. obviously I wasn't allowed to be watching this because I was a child, or whatever reason I was. And so I was just sat in the living room listening to everything that was going on because I couldn't concentrate on the TV anymore, even if my brother turned up. I don't remember if he did, but I was just sat there listening. And then they took her away, obviously, and then Caleb came to me and Judas and said, are you going to go to school? And Judas seemed fine with it, so he went to school, I think. I don't remember. I stopped caring what he was doing because he was just annoying me. But I was just in no state to go to school after seeing all of that. It was just too... I knew I wouldn't have been able to concentrate, so I was like, I'm not going to school. I can't. And so Caleb took me to a family friend who lived down the road, and I spent the day with her. And she had a little dog, a little Jack Russell called Barney. And it seems really cold, but playing with Barney and distracting myself with playing with Barney and looking after Barney and just existing with a dog enabled me to not think about my mother and what was happening with her at the hospital. I think I questioned it a couple of times, and a family friend was just like, no, she'll be fine, she's in hospital, she'll get better. And because the dog was there, I could distract myself. I think every time I would start thinking about her, I'd be like, no, we're going to play a new game with the dog, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. And I remember this day very clearly because she died on the same day that I was supposed to get the stitches removed or the bandage changed or something. It was some sort of medical checkup for after the operation I had on my face. And I remember being really frustrated and annoyed with my mum because she was supposed to take me, but instead the family friend had to. And I remember thinking that it was so annoying that she would never see, that she hadn't seen what the scar looked like after the operation. I don't know why it was so important to me, but I was really annoyed that she didn't see it. And then obviously we went back to the family friend's house, and it was coming up early evening at this point. And yeah, I think even the family friend was starting to get worried by this point because we hadn't heard anything. And then Caleb came round to come collect me, but instead of straight away coming to take me home, he and the family friend were in the hallway talking in hushed whispers so that I couldn't hear them. And I think part of me knew at that point that it wasn't going to be good news. And yeah, family friend came back in the room, and I don't remember her saying anything to me, but I think that's probably because I hadn't been told the news at this point. And so Caleb and we walked home in silence. It was a very heavy silence. It was quite obvious that he was hiding something. But yeah, we walked home and got home, and he sat me and Judas and Jeffrey. We were all sat down, and yeah, we were all sat in silence, just waiting for Caleb to say something, and then he went and said the one thing that none of us wanted to hear. He told us that Mum wasn't waking up, that she wasn't coming home. And obviously we all sat there just in shocked silence or stunned silence or whatever kind of silence it was. We just didn't know what to say. We weren't crying at this point because it hadn't really hit us. And then I think he repeated himself. Drove home the point that she wasn't coming home, that she wasn't waking up, that she was dead. He drove home the point that she was dead and that she wasn't coming home, and we all started crying. And I was so confused because I'd never seen my brothers cry. Well, I'd seen Judas cry, but I hadn't seen the other two cry. They were big, tough, manly men. They didn't cry. Whatever. I don't know why they didn't cry. But I'd never seen them cry, and then I knew that the worst thing had happened. She'd gone to hospital, and I remember blaming the hospital for I don't know how long after she'd died for killing her, because I was convinced that even if she was a vegetable, it would have been better than not having her at all. And part of me still to this day thinks maybe she would have been better as a vegetable rather than just dying, being cut off from the machine that was keeping her alive. And I know that's all kinds of wrong to think, because what if she didn't know me at all? What if she woke up from the ventilator and thought, who is this child? Who are all these people in my room? Why are they here? But anyway, back to the point. After he told us this, he was like, we need to go see her so you can say goodbye. And so we all bundled into his car and went to the hospital. And we went through the family room for grieving people, where I don't even know, I wasn't paying much attention at this point, I was just sort of moving in a daze. We went into her room, and she was lying on a hospital bed with wires coming off of her and in a gown, and her boyfriend was next to her. And then the one thing I managed to notice in great detail was that her hand was resting on a nappy, and I don't entirely know why to this day. There's probably some medical reason for it, but she was just laying there, and the machine was breathing for her, and she was dead but looked alive because the machine was keeping her that way. And my brother and Caleb was like, you need to say goodbye. And I couldn't move. It's like being back in her bedroom all over again. I was just stuck at the foot of her bed staring, like, just thinking all of the things that wasn't happening, that could have been happening, but should have been happening. It was just this, my brain was just going into overdrive trying to think of a rational reason why I was staring at my mother in a hospital bed. And I think at that point is when my heart broke for the first time. And so Judas stepped forward and kissed her goodbye and said goodbye and all that sort of thing, and at this point everyone was crying because of course we fucking were. But I couldn't touch her because she wasn't alive, and I knew she wasn't in the room anymore. We were staring at her corpse. And I couldn't touch her, I couldn't bring myself to touch her. And I remember seeing the look on Mum's boyfriend's face. She'd been with him for a couple of years at this point. And he was devastated. He was miserable. I mean, of course he was. His girlfriend just died. But there was just so much misery in that room. And it was just, you don't ever think that will happen. People go to the hospital, but you always expect them to come out. Even if they're like seriously ill, you're just like, no, it's a hospital, medical miracles happen, and if you're religious, you'll think God will save this person. But they don't always come out. I remember just going numb after she died for so long, because I didn't know how to live in a world where she wasn't alive. And when we all said our goodbyes, they realised I wasn't going to touch my mother. We left her room, and I think I was crying too much at this point to really remember, but I'm pretty sure there was definitely an uncle in the family room, and possibly my nan and granddad, but I don't remember, because everything after that sort of just goes hazy. And when we went home eventually, I couldn't bear the thought of going upstairs and sleeping in my room because it was too close to where she had died. So Caleb decided to let me sleep downstairs, and I remained sleeping downstairs for several weeks. I don't think I went back upstairs until I went back to school, which was probably a month after this. And going back to your last year of primary school after that, it is just so awkward. People stare at you, they don't know how to act around you, it's just so uncomfortable. And then you have people making up things about your mother dying, and just talking about her as if they saw it, and just making up these horrible comments. You don't know how to function. It's so painful, but you're also so numb. You're so numb and so heartbroken, and they say there are 5 or something stages of depression. I had all of mine hit at once. My depression all hit me at once. The depression, the anger, all The only part that didn't hit me was the acceptance, because I couldn't accept that she was dead, even though part of me already knew she was dead. And it all just hit me at once, and so I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to function. It didn't help I didn't have any friends. And I have one friend, and she's going to be watching this video, so you know who you are. And apparently I sort of broke down and died myself when my mum died. Because I wouldn't leave my house, even though I couldn't stand being in the house by myself. For the rest of my year 6 life, I would go, instead of going in, like after school, going home and being in the house, I would go and hang out at my family friend's house, because I couldn't bear the thought of being in the same house that she had died in. Because I was convinced her spirit was there, that she was there haunting the place that she had died, even though... And then it's like she was blaming us for not helping her fast enough. And going back to when I knocked on her door and felt this fear, it's just, what if I had gone in? What if I had done it? And I still have all of these fucked up what if moments that I'm just like, what if I'd done this? What if we got there faster? What if? That doesn't change anything, she's still dead. She's still dead and she's never coming back. And then there was I think there was a whole 4 or 5 months that I was technically unowned by anyone, because obviously my mum had died, my father doesn't have custody of me, and so when Caleb was fighting for custody of me as the legal guardian, whatever, it was some other name he had for it, but basically he would become a parent. I was unowned, so if something happened, then there wouldn't be a legal guardian for me to make decisions. And it was at that point I was like, maybe something should happen to me then. So then it would be up to the doctors to make a decision as to what would happen to me. Because clearly they were great at making those decisions, because they'd killed my mother. And I think a part of me was just like, maybe I should go join her. But anyway, that's the story time of how my mother died. And I said she died of a heart attack, but technically she had a heart attack which led to her having a massive brain bleed. Subarachnoid hemorrhage, if you want to be specific. And she died from brain death. So we would never have been able to get her out of the house and to the hospital in time. Anyway, so she was definitely dead in that bedroom. But that's the story time of how my mother died, and me having to remember that, even though my brain is very good at making me forget everything else. So, thank you all for watching. Peace out.